General Hospital will reveal the week beginning June 2, 2025, in Port Charles is set to deliver powerful turning points. As three major events simultaneously thrust key characters of General Hospital into a whirlwind of confrontation, truth, and heartbreak. Tense courtroom drama, emotionally charged interrogations, and shattered family plans will reach deep into the characters' psyches. As Laura confronts Alexis head-on in a quest to uncover long-buried truths, Michael enters the courtroom with a fierce determination to reclaim his role as a father, while Curtis and Portia are forced to face the inescapable consequences of past choices. Though these three situations may seem separate, they intertwine and overlap, coming together to create a gripping week of drama, where every decision has the power to destroy a relationship, expose a secret, or ignite an entirely new battle. First, another can't-miss moment in the week of June 2, 2025. On General Hospital revolves around the explosive custody hearing between Michael and Willow, one that promises to send shockwaves through Port Charles. As the legal proceedings unfold with heightened tension and public scrutiny, Michael steps up to the witness stand, carrying not just the hopes of regaining custody of Wiley and Amelia, but also the crushing weight of secrets, betrayals, and emotional scars that have haunted his fractured family. For months, behind closed doors, rumors and speculation festered. But now the truth is set to be exposed under oath, raw, unfiltered, and inescapable. Michael's decision to testify wasn't one he took lightly. He understood that placing himself at the mercy of the court would mean bearing every facet of his personal life, both the strengths and the failings. Yet with his children at stake, he resolved to face the storm head-on. His voice is steady, but his eyes betray a flicker of nerves as he begins recounting the circumstances that led to the current custody battle. The courtroom listens closely as he paints a picture of growing alienation, broken trust, and manipulation by those once closest to him. The love he still holds for Willow is unmistakable. But so too is the pain, and it becomes clear that this is not simply a legal fight, it is an emotional war waged across every line that defines parenthood, loyalty, and self-worth. Then comes the damning evidence, one of the most shocking pieces to be introduced in the proceedings, proof of Drew's secret drug use. Though Drew had long positioned himself as the reliable anchor in Amelia's life, recent events reveal a much darker reality. A security video is submitted into evidence, showing Drew in the children's playroom at the Quartermain estate, slumped against a chair, visibly impaired while Amelia and Wiley play around him. Gasps echo through the courtroom. The image of a once respected man failing in his most fundamental duty, keeping children safe, rips through the illusion Drew had worked so hard to maintain. Michael doesn't gloat or revel in the moment. Instead, his testimony is measured and somber, guided by a singular focus, ensuring his children's well-being. The fallout is immediate. Drew's legal team scrambles to discredit the footage, suggesting editing, manipulation, or stress-induced fatigue. But the damage is done. Judges are not easily swayed. But this level of negligence is difficult to ignore. Michael continues, detailing other moments of instability he's witnessed, moments where Drew's temper flared without warning. Moments where he'd disappear for hours without explanation, leaving Willow alone to pick up the pieces. It becomes a narrative not just of Drew's flaws but of a pattern. One that undermines his credibility and calls into question the stability of the home he's trying to build with Willow. Outside the courtroom, another secret brews. One that threatens to change the entire landscape of the case. Nina has discovered that Michael is the biological father of Sasha's unborn child. The revelation is staggering. One that rewrites the past and challenges every assumption about Michael's romantic and parental loyalties. Nina stumbled upon the truth by accident, through an intercepted message between Sasha and her obstetrician, but what she does with that information could determine the next chapter of Michael's life. Her relationship with Sasha complicates the matter even further. Though the two women have endured their own turmoil, Nina feels a deep maternal pull to protect Sasha from the shame and media frenzy such a revelation would invite. Yet Nina's own pain and bitterness begin to cloud her judgment. She remembers vividly how Michael cut her off from Willow and Amelia, how he turned his back on her after the SEC scandal, and how he helped erect a legal wall between her and her family. Now, armed with a truth that could dismantle Michael's credibility, she contemplates using it as a weapon. Her inner conflict grows louder with each passing hour. She knows that if she reveals the truth in court, it could destroy not only Michael's chances of winning custody but also his reputation, his career, and his standing in both the Corinthos and Quartermaine circles. But she also knows it would fracture Sasha beyond repair. In the days leading up to the next hearing, Nina paces her penthouse, rereading the test results and messages, weighing her options as the city outside carries on, unaware of the storm about to break. Valentine warns her to think clearly, to avoid acting out of revenge. But Nina has never been one to follow caution when her heart is involved. She writes and rewrites a sworn statement, imagining every reaction, every consequence, and every door that might slam shut because of it. In her mind, she sees Sasha's tears, Michael's rage, Willow's heartbreak. She also sees the courtroom erupting in chaos as her statement is read aloud, an earthquake beneath a crumbling foundation of trust. Back in court, as Michael finishes his testimony, his lawyer glances toward the gallery, where Nina now sits, tense and pale, gripping her handbag with white knuckles. The judge notices her too, her presence and expression suggesting she has something to say. The judge asks if any new evidence or statements are being submitted. There's a long silence. All eyes are on Nina. This is her moment. The moment where one sentence could reshape everything, the ruling, the families, the fates of children. Her lips part slightly, but she hesitates. A war rages inside her, revenge versus mercy, truth versus protection. Whether Nina ultimately chooses to expose Michael or stays silent, the atmosphere in Port Charles will never be the same. The courtroom has become a crucible where years of hidden wounds, unspoken betrayals, and buried truths are finally being laid bare. And as the gavel prepares to fall in judgment, it is clear that this custody case is more than just about parental rights, it is about power, legacy, and the cost of keeping secrets too long. For Michael, his testimony may have brought the truth to light, but the consequences are far from over. What Nina decides next could either save or ruin him, and nothing will ever be the same again. Second, in the unfolding chaos of Port Charles, Rick has emerged as a formidable and unrelenting force in the courtroom, determined to control the narrative and bend the truth to serve his strategy. As the custody hearing intensifies, Rick seizes his opportunity, turning his legal prowess into a weapon of psychological warfare. When Alexis attempts to negotiate or possibly soften the original terms of their agreement, hoping to protect herself and salvage what little remains of her professional reputation, Rick stands firm. His voice is cold, authoritative, and measured, not driven by anger, but by a calculated ambition to dominate every inch of the proceedings. He's not just refusing to renegotiate. He's cornering Alexis, reminding her of the leverage he holds, and making it clear that this is no longer about compromise. It's about victory. Rick's pressure campaign escalates quickly. He uses Alexis's past missteps, her struggles with alcohol, her suspension from practicing law, and her complicated personal entanglements, as ammunition to discredit her and diminish any moral high ground she might have claimed. Every question he throws at her is laced with insinuation, designed not just to elicit facts but to expose vulnerabilities. Alexis, normally composed and incisive, finds herself faltering under the weight of Rick's aggressive cross-examination. He brings up her former relationships, her defense of clients with criminal pasts, and her own history with the Corinthos family, subtly painting her as someone whose loyalties are as flexible as her ethics. The courtroom watches as Alexis, stripped of her defenses, tries to maintain her composure in front of the judge, her daughter, and her own crumbling self-image. Meanwhile, the fallout from Rick's manipulation begins to ripple outward. Christina, already reeling from the revelation that Rick has been using incriminating evidence as a means of blackmail, is caught in a storm of betrayal and moral confusion. She trusted Rick at one point. Believed in his desire to help her family heal, but now she sees him for what he truly is, a master manipulator willing to exploit anyone to achieve his goals. With every day that passes, Christina becomes more aware of the extent to which Rick has twisted the truth, and her anger begins to simmer dangerously beneath the surface. She is no longer a passive observer. She is a fuse waiting to ignite. The tension builds further when Christina stumbles upon a private conversation, perhaps between Rick and a key witness. Or maybe between Rick and Ava, where his true motivations are laid bare. He doesn't just want justice. He wants retribution. He wants to punish Sonny, to embarrass the Corinthos name. And to assert himself as the man who finally broke the family apart in court. Christina's rage is immediate and visceral. She confronts Ava, whose own involvement in the custody case is mired in her ambiguous loyalties and personal agendas. The encounter turns physical. A shouting match erupts in the courthouse hallway, culminating in Christina shoving Ava against the wall, her voice shaking with fury as she accuses her of aligning with Rick for selfish gain. Security intervenes. But the damage is done, the scene draws media attention, and whispers begin circulating that Christina is unraveling. Back in the courtroom, Rick remains unshaken. He uses the altercation to further his case, suggesting Christina's volatile behavior is indicative of a broader dysfunction in the Corinthos family. He implies that if even the adult children are emotionally unstable, then what hope is there for the next generation? It's a ruthless move, exploiting the emotional toll on Christina as a tactical advantage. Alexis, watching her daughter fall apart, is torn between her instinct to protect Christina and her fear that any further resistance will make things worse. She knows Rick won't stop. He'll keep digging, keep provoking, until someone breaks, and right now, Christina is dangerously close to being that someone. At the end of the week, another bombshell drops. Lucky returns to Port Charles. And with him comes a piece of the puzzle no one expected. Whether it's something Liz confides in him, or something he uncovers on his own. It's a revelation that threatens to shift the balance of power once more. Perhaps it's a connection between Rick's current tactics and his shady dealings from years ago. Maybe it's a document that had been buried, evidence of forgery, manipulation, or a payoff. Lucky, ever the reluctant hero, finds himself in the middle of the chaos he thought he'd left behind. As he processes the truth, he knows he must choose, stay silent and watch the destruction unfold, or step forward and risk becoming the next target in Rick's scorched earth campaign. Meanwhile, Alexis reaches a breaking point. She realizes that negotiating with Rick is no longer an option, and that her only path forward is to expose him for what he truly is. She begins compiling her own evidence, emails, voice recordings, witness statements, anything that can shine a light on Rick's misconduct. She understands the cost. Her career may never recover. Her name may be dragged through the mud. But if it means saving her daughter and stopping Rick before he destroys everyone in his path, it's a sacrifice she's willing to make. The final moments of the week end with Alexis standing outside the courthouse, documents clutched in her trembling hands, her eyes focused and resolute. War has been declared. And she is done playing defense. Third, the week begins with rising tension as Alexis finds herself cornered in one of the most uncomfortable and morally compromising positions of her career. With secrets swirling around her like a tightening noose, Alexis is summoned by Laura, who has begun asking difficult questions. The mayor of Port Charles and longtime friend of the Cassadine family. Laura has every reason to be suspicious when she notices an unexplained $10 million withdrawal from the Cassadine estate, an account she has kept a careful eye on ever since Nicholas's disappearance. And the emergence of baby Ace as the rightful heir. The funds have vanished without a trace, and the only person with full legal access and fiduciary control is Alexis. With no room for plausible deniability, Alexis must face Laura, who demands to know the truth. Alexis, known for her composure and sharp legal acumen, Attempts to maneuver through Laura's inquiries with vague reassurances and half-truths. She insists that the money was moved for a confidential legal purpose involving the estate and implies that it will be accounted for in due time. However, Laura is no stranger to deflection and is unconvinced. She has known Alexis long enough to recognize when she's lying, or worse, protecting someone. Laura's tone grows colder, her gaze more piercing. As she pushes harder, the two women, once allies, now find themselves at odds in a private but high-stakes confrontation where the veneer of trust begins to crack. Alexis's evasions may buy her some time, but they only deepen Laura's suspicions. Privately, Alexis is unraveling. The truth, that she is paying hush money to Rick and Ava to keep Christina out of prison, is tearing her apart. Every fiber of her moral compass recoils at what she's doing. Draining millions from a trust fund meant for an innocent child to cover up a crime and protect her daughter. But the guilt is not enough to stop her. Alexis knows that if the truth were to come out, not only would Christina face legal consequences, but the scandal would destroy her family's already fragile reputation. Her maternal instinct to protect Christina at all costs wars with her sense of justice and ethical duty. The weight of the compromise is suffocating, and the pressure grows with every passing hour. Meanwhile, Rick and Ava tighten their grip. Rick, fueled by personal vendettas and the thrill of power, pushes Alexis for more money, threatening to leak incriminating evidence that could not only send Christina to prison but also implicate Alexis in conspiracy and embezzlement. Ava, cunning and unrepentant, acts as the enforcer, showing up at Alexis's office with veiled threats and smug warnings. Alexis is caught between two forces she cannot control, forced to play their game while trying desperately to find a way out. The money she's paid so far has bought silence, but it hasn't secured safety, and that knowledge gnaws at her constantly. Laura, sensing deeper deception, begins her own investigation. She contacts Valentine and Martin to cross-reference the estate's financials. When the numbers don't add up, Laura begins to trace Alexis's recent movements, phone records, and legal correspondence. She also begins talking to staff at the courthouse and the estate office, uncovering inconsistencies and strange behavior. Though she doesn't yet have proof, Laura feels a storm coming. She confronts Alexis again, this time less as a friend and more as a public official with a duty to protect the estate of a minor. Her warning is sharp: if Alexis is found to have misused funds, not only will she be disbarred, she could face charges of fraud and obstruction. The emotional stakes suddenly become legal and life-altering. Christina, unknowingly at the center of this chaos, starts to sense that something is wrong. She notices Alexis's behavior, nervous, distracted, quick-tempered, and begins to ask questions. When Alexis dodges her concerns, Christina starts her own quiet inquiry. She stumbles across an email trail on her mother's laptop, fragments of communication between Alexis and a private fund manager, encrypted and marked urgent. Though she can't fully decipher the meaning, Christina begins to suspect her mother is hiding something massive. Her guilt deepens, knowing she may be the reason Alexis is compromising her own ethics and future. Torn between coming clean and protecting her mother, Christina begins to spiral. Back in her office, Alexis finally breaks. The pressure, the shame, and Laura's relentless pursuit of the truth become too much. Alone in the darkened room, she pulls out a folder filled with copies of all the transactions, receipts, and blackmail notes. She considers turning it all in, walking into Laura's office and admitting everything. But the fear of losing Christina, fear of going to prison, fear of becoming a public disgrace, holds her back. She clutches the folder to her chest, her eyes brimming with tears, unsure of whether she is protecting her daughter or damning them both. As the week draws to a close, the walls are closing in. Alexis knows the clock is ticking. Laura will not stop until she gets answers. Rick and Ava will not relent until they've squeezed every dollar from her. And Christina is on the verge of discovering the truth. Alexis stands on the edge of a precipice, one step away from complete collapse. Her every move now carries monumental consequences, and as her carefully constructed lies begin to crumble, she must decide whether to confess, resist, or fall completely under the weight of everything she's sacrificed in the name of love. As the week of June 2, 2025, approaches its dramatic crescendo, all eyes will turn to the simmering tension between Curtis and Portia, whose fragile marriage now stands on the edge of implosion. What was meant to be a simple family gathering may instead serve as the stage for a catastrophic unraveling, where secrets too long buried claw their way to the surface. If Portia's past sins are exposed, whether through an unexpected confession, a well-timed confrontation, or a deliberate act of revenge, the fallout could be swift and merciless, shattering the carefully maintained image of unity she's tried so hard to preserve. With so many storylines converging, Michael's courtroom battle, Alexis's ethical collapse, Rick's power plays, and now Portia's looming reckoning, General Hospital promises a week of explosive revelations, irreversible decisions, and emotional devastation. As everything teeters on the edge, viewers are left to wonder not if something will break, but who will break first.